My name is James Flynn, and I worked at Mary's Place for 5 years as the Youth Services Director and the Chief Program Officer.
And how'd you get started working with them?
I got started and connected to Mary's Place through a history with the Boys and Girls Clubs of King County. I had been living out of Seattle and returned to Seattle in late 2015. And at that time, Mary's Place was working with the Boys and Girls Club to develop youth programs, and an introduction was made. And I ended up coming on to lead the youth programs at Mary's Place at that time.
Cool. Do you have a favorite memory of Mary's Place? Is there like a moment or an interaction that stands out to you? You can have multiple if you want.
Yeah. I mean, it is really, really hard to choose one favorite moment, but I'm happy to share some. I really loved kind of the community of Mary's Place. By the end of my time there, I had the unique experience of really having relationships with staff and families, guests across all the sites. Because I was leading all the programs at that time, I really was able to maintain connections across all these sites, and just the feeling of coming into a site and being greeted warmly by staff and families, and really feeling like that I was part of a community that was having an impact, that was creating positive change in people's lives. Even in those moments when there was, tough issues that needed to be addressed, knowing that I could lean on positive relationships and such great pieces was huge for me. And then, of course, special events like, the holiday party, Holly Jolly, Halloween, back to school events, events celebrating, especially young people, as that my background is. So celebrating youth as they graduated from grades or just had a big accomplishment in their lives. Really stick out to me as very positive, happy moments in my time at Mary Place.
Mm-hmm. What impact did you see Mary's Place have in the greater Seattle community?
I saw a tremendous impact. I feel blessed to have, an up close front row view, and many times, be able to really communicate with families to see the impact that Mary's Place had on their lives, to really be there and be part of a community that supported people for most folks is what, one of the lowest moments in their lives, and to see people really take the lead in figuring out how they were going to move from this crisis back into a greater level of stability. So I think, being at Mary's Place for 5+ years, and interacting with hundreds of people and families, I really got to see families, and being there for that amount of time, you would see families who would come back with success stories, share their success, stop in to visit, and would share that impact. And I've now been gone from Mary's Place for a couple years, but I still run into people, whether it's former staff, former guests who talk positively, and really share the deep impact that time had in their lives.
Mm-hmm. How did you see the organization grow while you were there?
It was a time of tremendous growth. So when I started with Mary's Place in late 2015, we were just a few months out of opening our first 24-hour family center. And so I was able to be part of that process. And, for the first year or so that we were there in that family center, it was the only location that was serving families during the day. And so Mary's Place had grown from this, outgrown this space that was primarily focused on serving single women experiencing homelessness, but that families had really joined in to having space just for families. And then that growth from there just took off. We really were able to learn a lot of lessons being all packed into that first family center, North Seattle Family Center, and kind of learn on the fly, learn together with families, as an organization, how to best serve folks in that space, and really, go from serving, a few hundred people on the family services side to, by the time that I left 5 years later, we had, over 700 beds for families while we continued to serve single women. And so huge amount of growth, lots of challenges involved with that, but lots of learning, and so many successes, so much, amazing amazing moments.
Mm-hmm. Can you think of an event, or if you can't think of one, maybe a series of events or a time period that you think is particularly important to the history of the organization?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about, an important moment or important time period, really, again, that first year that we were in the family center. At that time,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to the family center, we had a couple older shelters that were only open for nighttime service. So there was a rotating shelter that would go church to church, and then Julia's Place. But for daytime services, everyone came to the family center in North Seattle. And I remember at that time I was still leading youth services. We would have days where we were up on the third floor in our kids club. We called it the youth area, where over the course of the day, our sign-in sheet would have over 100 names. So that means, from toddlers, all the way up through high school age kids in the course of a day. Summer days, particularly, I think was when we would have those huge numbers. We would see that many kids come through. And so just that number of people, the number of kind of services that we able to, for the first time, all have focused in one place, offering health services, having the housing team there on site, the intake team there on site, and really kind of everybody working together to figure out how to best serve families and to figure out, can we do this on a larger scale? Because we knew at that time that the need in Seattle was growing, that the need was there. And so it was just a huge opportunity to learn so many, fun memories of kind of just figuring things out on the fly. It was not the ideal building for sheltering everybody and gathering, but we made it work, right? It was an old office building. We made it
Mm-hmm.
work. We learned a lot. And from there, we were able to take those lessons and really think intentionally about, as we moved into new spaces, as we grew, as we opened additional family centers, how to do that well. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I hope and I believe that the organization is still kind of taking those lessons they learned there and building on them, and really, have long ago transitioned from being kind of a small, scrappy, figure it out as you go, to really being an established leader in serving families and homelessness in Seattle, and doing that in a way that serves families well, that serves staff well, that serves the community well.
Mm-hmm. Great. Finally today, I just would invite you, if you have any other memories or insights or anything that you want to share to be a part of this history project, I would invite you to just share it with me now.
Yeah,
Um,
I think for me, there's kind of two categories of things that stand out. One is the small interactions. So,
mhm.
things from having, a small kid run up to you, excited to see you because you're another caring, loving adult in their life, to having a family pull you aside before they move into housing and say, thank you for what you've been able to provide my family, the support you've given in your time here. Or the flip side, right? To have a family who's really frustrated and going through a tough time come to you with that concern or challenge, and be able to work with them to address that challenge in a way that they come out of it feeling better. Maybe it's not solved or perfect, but that they feel better about the interaction. So those stick out. And the other thing that really stands out to me is the events. All right. So as I mentioned before, these great events, the Women's Day Center. Um, I remember particularly we had a roller skating woman Santa at the day center for Holly Jolly, the holiday celebration. I think it was a member of the Rat City Roller Girls came in and did that, and just the joy in women's face to be able to have a Santa who was kind of just for them in their event, but bacon and bling, all these events, particularly at the Women's Day Center. But then when I think on the family side, um, again, right, it's those big moments when we're celebrating guests, celebrating their success, or really honoring people and being able to help them kind of celebrate those moments of life that we all want to celebrate, right? Successes in their kids' lives, holidays, those spaces, those all stick out to me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today and sharing some of your memories and experiences. I really enjoyed hearing all of your stories, and I really appreciate you participating.
Happy to participate. Thank you for taking the time. Good luck on the project.
Thank you so much.